The controversy over the approval and release of 5.8 billion naira by the federal government for the Northeast Food Intervention continues to generate reactions and counter-reactions. Mr. Ikem Isekwena, a lawyer and a supporter of the All Progressives Congress, is worried that the House of Representatives is not only out to witch hunt and discredit an initiative that was aimed at tackling hunger in the Northeast, but also pulling the poor very far from the wealthy.
The facts are the fact, and we need to separate it from fiction and, innuendos or conjectures. So, first point to note is that there was an emergency situation, and the law provides for a process, whether by procurement or how money gets disbursed from government coffers to address this situation. Now, you have a report which at best is haphazard and at worst is just a deliberate ploy to tarnish, the image of persons in government. So you find that what had happened was that in May of 2017, there was a crisis, there was a food crisis, where the United Nations World Food Program, specified that they were unable to, to deal with, about there was going to be a reduction of 85% funding to persons in the IDPs in the Northeast. So you had the administration was confronted with an emergency. How did they deal with it? A meeting was convened. The vice president, who at the time was acting president, sat with relevant ministries. We had the Minister of Budget and Planning, Finance, Agriculture and Rural Development, and the CBN. And so this was what was constituted into a presidential committee on food security. And so it was clear that they needed to send 45,000 metric tons of grains to the Northeast so that people don't die of starvation. So it was a people-oriented action taken in good faith. And, they sat around, and in that meeting room, this report did not indicate, as was eloquently expressed to them in the hearings, that the CBN, in the consultation, said, oh, fine, we have a price stabilization process. There's a price stabilization process where we are in a PPP, which is a public-private partnership arrangement with the most renowned of agriculture, aggregators and people, flour mills, Dangote Rice, Wakot, Boa. And these guys had grain reserves such that, it contains any shocks from pricing, when it's off-season. So, cumulatively, there was 30,000, almost 31,000 metric tons of these grains. So it was soya beans, it was sorghum, it was millet. And this showed that, okay, so there was a pricing system at the time that allowed a procurement process in an emergent situation to occur. Now you hear that there is unconstitutionality, there is illegality, which is patently false. You have the NEMA Act. If you look at Section 16, subsection 2 of the NEMA Act, it clearly specifies the authorizing authority for any award of contract by NEMA in an emergency situation. And it's the president. And remember that the vice president at the time was the acting president. So he was acting in accordance with law. And here you also have the Procurement Act. Section 43 of the Procurement Act provides that there is a departure from the general bidding process, and you can do single sourcing, or you can do and you can undertake the process that was undertaken in this instance. And so you have a report that comes out, and I'm shocked that this report, it specifies that Section 16 of the Procurement Act was infringed. How can there be an infraction of general principles of law when there is a specific section of the law that says in an emergency situation, this sort of process that was followed could be followed, as was indeed followed in this instance? So it shows you that it's a hatchet job. It shows you, in just reading the report, a year one intern in law school wouldn't write such a report. The report, if you're going to state an issue, you have to consider the facts extensively. You also have to consider the law extensively. How come you arrive at Section 16 and you fail to look at Section 43? And so it shows you what this is about. It's deliberate. And what I find a little bit disconcerting, that this is the second arm of government. These are guys who come together, on taxpayers' money. And you should do a thorough job, not a hatchet job.
On the flip, there are counter reactions to Mr. Ezekwuena's disposition by politicians from